Hello everyone, and welcome to today's Euractiv debate about sustainable product policy. My name is Dave Keating. I'm a journalist based in Brussels, and I'm coming at you live from the Euractiv studios in the heart of the EU quarter. And just across the street is the Berlaymont, the European Commission headquarters, where they have unveiled this year a Circular Economy 2.0 strategy. It is the kind of revived version of its original circular economy strategy, which is seeking to change the way that we consume here in Europe. For decades, the standard approach to consumption has been to make, use, and then dispose. The European Commission wants to change this. It wants to make our consumption patterns more circular, not single-use, so that we take into consideration when we make products how they can be reused, how they can last longer, and then how they can be recycled at the end of their life. The current linear pattern that we have doesn't give producers an incentive to make their products more sustainable. Many products break down too quickly, as we all know quite well, and they can't be easily reused, repaired, or recycled. Many are made for a single use only. They're designed even for a very short lifetime, plastic straws being a pretty good example. This is partly because prices of products often don't reflect their environmental and societal costs, which reduces the incentives to produce and consume more sustainably. Missing or unclear information for consumers on the sustainability of products further contributes to the problem. The linear model of production is problematic for a variety of reasons, not least of which is the unnecessary damage it does to the climate. Fighting climate change is, of course, one of the main priorities of the current Commission of President Ursula von der Leyen. And the EU is increasingly acting as the world's regulator, setting standards which the rest of the globe follows because of the power, strength, and size of the EU single market. So could this also happen with sustainable product design? Does it give the EU a unique opportunity to change the way the entire world makes products and how it disposes of products? Standards for the global value chain could be easily set here in Brussels. EU initiatives and legislation already exist in this area. The Eco-Design Directive regulates energy efficiency and certain circularity features of energy-related products. Instruments such as the EU Eco-Label or the Green Public Procurement are broader in scope but have reduced impact because they are voluntary. But in general, there is no comprehensive set of requirements to ensure that all products placed on the EU market become increasingly sustainable and follow the circular pattern. That's what we're really looking for at EU level. The new Circular Economy Action Plan does want to change that. It envisions initiatives for the entire life cycle of products, from design and manufacturing to consumption, repair, reuse, recycling, and bringing resources back into the EU economy. One of the initiatives is the Sustainable Product Policy Framework that we're going to be talking about today, which includes actions on product design, empowering consumers, and encouraging more sustainable production processes. So there's a lot to talk about here with this area. Luckily, we've assembled an expert panel to discuss all of these issues. I'll introduce them now. First, we have Regina Maria Dubé, Director General for Water Management, Resource Conservation, and Adaptation to Climate Change at the Environment Ministry of Germany, which currently holds the rotating EU presidency and is therefore coordinating EU policy at the Council of the EU. Then we have Swedish centre-right MEP Jessica Polfjärd. She is a member of the Environment Committee at the European Parliament. We have Paola Migliorini, Deputy Head of Unit for Sustainable Production, Products and Consumption at the European Commission's Environment DG. Lynette Chung, Chief Sustainability Officer at the German raw materials maker Covestro, and Justin Wilkes, Executive Director of ECOS, which is focused on standardization. Environmental standardization specifically. Thank you all for joining us today. Looking forward to get your thoughts on this. Before we get started, a couple housekeeping notes. You guys at home will be able to ask your questions to the panelists using the Q&A feature on the left side of your screen. I'm going to go ahead and start that now. So you can type your questions in there. It's the little icon with a question mark. And at the end of the panel discussion, I'll be reading out your questions. There's also a chat feature. You can use that to make comments and react to what people are saying, but don't put questions in the chat feature because I won't see them. Put them in the Q&A feature. Also, don't make statements in the Q&A feature. Chat feature for statements, Q&A feature for questions. You can also take part in the discussion online on Twitter by using the hashtag EADebates right here below me. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. Regina, let me start with you because you, as the German presidency, you've inherited this Circular Economy 2.0 strategy, and you are working with the Commission and, of course, with all the EU member states about thinking how the EU can change the way that we consume here in Europe. So what has the German presidency been doing with the sustainable products policy specifically and the circular economy strategy more generally?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. First of all, I want to explain what does it mean for us to hold the presidency. This really means that we feel we need to support the Commission in its endeavor to work towards sustainability. And we are very, very happy about the Green Deal, and we consider this a groundbreaking strategy for not only for Europe, but of course also for Europe. And one of the most important pillars of this strategy is the Circular Economy Action Plan, which the Commission brought out in March. And now it is our role, and we have done this so far, and I think we have really reached a good step forward to negotiate Council conclusions regarding the Circular Economy Action Plan. This is important for the Commission to give its support for then taking further action on the action plan, because at the moment it's just a plan. It needs to be translated into legislation, into strategies, into practical change. And if you look into the action plan, then you find a lot of very positive ideas regarding product policy. There's the issue of the Eco-Design Directive, which we want to get broadened towards other products. At the moment, it concentrates on energy efficiency, the right to repair. Then also digitalization. This is something which we brought into the Council conclusions because we feel that digitalization can really help boost our sustainability if it is designed in a proper way. It can help in transparency, in consumers' information, but also with regard to resource efficiency. Yeah, and then there are issues regarding compulsory recyclate contents in plastic products and packaging, and many other things. So all this is part of the Circular Economy Action Plan, and the Council conclusions, which were negotiated by us, will be hopefully then adopted by the Environment Council on 17th of December. And I'm very hopeful that in the end, all member states will agree to this, and this will be then hopefully a good support and good guidance for the Commission to go ahead in the next years to come. Thanks,
you. Regina. Let's turn to Jessica now. Jessica, what do you make of the EU's circular economy strategy so far? And coming from the perspective of the Parliament, how do you think it could be strengthened?
Thank you, Dave, and thank you for the invitation and having me on the debate today. We know that the transition towards a more circular economy is one of the most important initiatives that we are facing, and it's part of the Green Deal agenda. And I think it finally gets the attention that it really deserves. And because it's so important and very broad, we really need a larger conversation about the circular economy that involves both the public sector and the private sector. And I think it's important to know that these two are have to work together to reach the most and best value and output. So I'm very glad for this initiative to have this debate, because I think it really needs more attention. And as you know, and the reason why we are here is the Commission published a Circular Economy Action Plan earlier this year. And we are, as we speak, in the European Parliament working on this report. And it's an ongoing negotiations between the political groups, and we are expected to vote on the final compromises by the end of January. And I think I will just give some thoughts on this work and priorities from my side. And I will start to say that this is an important initiative, and I think that we should support it. Our production and consumption practices and patterns, as you mentioned in the beginning, are not sustainable in the long run, and we need to be ambitious in order to bring change and lasting change in the future. And the action plan was therefore a welcome contribution. And in particular, I agree with the Commission that you should also see this strategy as a growth strategy. And I think that's also an important notice to have both economic and green growth in mind at the same time. And we know that there has been a pandemic. No one have been not affected by the pandemic, and we could also see an economic downturn in all over Europe, and therefore it's more important than ever that also keep the climate ambitions alive, because it's a risk that the pandemic will be the overall discussion. But I think that we have been able to do so far. And I think it's important to get this right from the beginning. And one thing that I have pushed for is that we need to strengthen the internal market if we are serious about circular economy on the European level. And I would say that we need to make it easier to trade both in services and secondary materials. And therefore, we also need the help from the industry, and the industry to be able to shift to more sustainable operations and make it easier for consumers to make more sustainable choices. And I would say that this is where the sustainability product policy framework, why it is so important. And this is also, I could mention some priorities. And when we talk about proposal for the reduction of primary raw materials, recycled content, or durability, we need to design these proposals in a way that allows for flexibility between different product categories and sectors. And for taking a Swedish example, for instance, we have a large steel industry that is currently at work to make their production more sustainable, and have come quite far in this sector, and are very well aware of the pollution that has to contribute less. Yes, I leave that. We also have a large and important forestry sector, and both of these sectors are affected by our policies. But the difference between steel and biomass are very large. And these are two examples that show that we need ambitious targets that are based on realities and the diversity in different European economies. And I think that is something that we might come back to and discuss later on in the discussion. Thank you.
Thanks. So, Paula, we've been talking about your Circular Economy 2.0 strategy and the rest of the Commission initiatives. Tell us, how will the Sustainable Product Policy Framework help achieve the goals of the Circular Economy strategy? Tell us a little bit about what you guys have in mind.
Yes, thank you very much, Dave. In fact, I really appreciate this invitation and this opportunity, and even more so your specific question onto the how, because in your introduction, you have clearly identified the reasons why we need to change, and we need to come up with legislative proposals to ensure that sustainable products becomes the norm. We have also understood somehow some of the reasons. So, you indicated the products are breaking down too quickly. I also want to few elements also on very, very quick. We know, for example, take the electronic products that only 40% of them are recycled. Think that the environmental impacts of a product, for at least 80%, they are determined at the design phase. So it is clear that we need to work very early in the process and in the phases of the circular economy in order to really make the difference. So how we're going to do this, it's with a series of legislative proposals. And I really would like to clarify or help clarifying at least what is going to happen in 2020, because stakeholders will and have already been faced with a series of public consultations, information on different legislative proposals coming out. So it's important that what remains in the mind of everyone is that the Commission wants to come forward with what we call it a sustainable product policy framework. It is made of a series of initiatives, all legislatives, and a series of initiatives that are accompanying the legislative work. The bulk of the legislative proposal that we are planning to present towards the end of the year. It's the proposal that we call the Sustainable Products Initiative. It is the one that you were mentioning, the one that will expand the scope of the Eco-Design Directive. But together with these proposals, you need to read into the activity of the commissions and link with the legislative proposals that is likely to come up mid-2021 to empower consumers, providing more information to consumers and establishing what we call it a right to repair. At the same time, another legislative proposals that will address false green claims. So identifying and providing tools to companies to indicate the environmental footprint of their product and informing consumers about the hotspots or about precisely the benchmark of the footprint, environmental footprint of the products that they are going to purchase compared to others, so then they can make more sustainable choices. So working on the consumption aspects as well. And we will also, in the course of the year, towards the end, come with some initiatives that we call it addressing key value chains. For example, a European strategy for textiles and a circular electronics initiative. So again, keep in mind the broader framework of sustainable product policy framework and different elements. I also wanted to indicate that we are probably between the circular electronic initiatives and the sustainable products. We will have some elements that will help materialize what we called, or stakeholders have been calling, passport. So a series of initiatives that all together, because they all complement each other. They are all part of a puzzle. And I just want to anticipate the dynamic of this initiative. So there is no overlaps. There is really a synergy, and then several aspects. It's an incredibly complex area, if you, as you know. So we need to call really on the joint effort of all the institutions. And I actually would like to take the opportunity to thank Regina for the good cooperation that we had, and then we thank for the support that the presidency has given to the Commission with the work on the Council conclusions, precisely, that are calling for some. Thank all the stakeholders that have been taking part up until now to contribute to the Sustainable Product Policy Framework with inputs on the different consultations that we set up. We had almost 200 inputs for the Sustainable Product Policy initiative for the moment. And then at the same time, thank also the Parliament through Jennifer, if I can say so, because we are looking towards receiving the opinion. And we already know that there have been some thousands of amendments. So it's really incredible how we can see the interest and the efforts across the board to contribute to have the best sustainable product policy framework that we can. So I'm very happy to continue this conversation and provide more details as the audience will request.
Thanks a lot. So there you have the positions of the 3 EU institutions which are going to be working hand in hand together to craft this new sustainable product policy. It's interesting, Paula, that you mentioned the increased labeling. I mean, I think that's something that's very, very interesting to consumers. Of course, people are used to having nutrition labels on their products to tell them what kind of harm they might be doing to their body by using the product. Now they might have labeling to tell them what kind of harm they might be doing to the planet by using any specific type of product. Let's move on to Lynette. Of course, companies are going to have a really, really big role here in this transformation. I think particularly companies like Covestro. So how do you see the role of companies which make raw materials in the circular economy strategy? What is their part to play?
Thank you very much, Dave, and thank you very much for the invite. So I'm here today representing Covestro. It's maybe just a brief introduction of who Covestro is. We are a high-performance polymers manufacturer headquartered in Germany. We have 30 production sites across the world and around 17,000 co-workers globally. As a high-tech polymer manufacturer, we create materials that are used in every area of daily life and in a wide range of industries, such as the automotive segment, construction, energy, electronics, healthcare, and furniture, just to name some of them. Our motto in Covestro is to make the world a brighter place, a purpose that we are pursuing, especially through a very ambitious sustainability agenda. In Covestro, answering your question in terms of how we see our role in the circular economy, we adopted earlier this year our new company vision to become fully circular. We are focusing on bringing sustainable and circular solutions to the market using alternative raw materials such as based on CO2, biomass, or end-of-life materials. We're looking to developing innovative recycling technologies, starting or continuously promoting value chain collaborations, and also looking to switching to the use of renewable energy. Concrete examples of what we have that we believe can support bringing more sustainable solutions to the market is our innovation like Cardion. This is a technology that allows for the reuse of waste CO2 gas as a raw material. It can be used in soft foam that is used in mattresses, elastic textile fibers, and in other segments as well. By this technology, we are lowering our use of virgin fossil feedstock and also lowering the greenhouse gas emission footprint. And this is something that we see as we can offer into bringing more sustainable products to the market. We're also looking into increasing our bio-based offering in this respect. And of course, coming back to circularity, for end-of-life materials, we're looking into incorporating more recycled content through mechanical recycling, or be it through chemical recycling, which we believe can be a valuable technology for dealing with mixed plastic waste that is difficult to recycle today, or to deal with the presence of hazardous substances. We think that by chemical recycling, we can close the material and carbon loops in an optimized and efficient manner in this regard. So we're focusing very intensively on developing new products, new technologies in order to support the transition towards circularity. In relation to the sustainable product policy initiatives and the work that the Commission is doing, and reflecting upon what we have been doing in working with our value chain partners, I would like to state here that I believe that sustainability criteria must be addressed specifically for each value chain and in a holistic manner. It is difficult with a one-size-fits-all. We have seen that when developing products, we need to take into account very particular specificities when we talk about the different product groups, how the value chains look like, understand the end of life of the end products also, and how our materials would be treated in that respect. So to be truly sustainable, from our point of view, we should first of all ensure that we do not jeopardize in any way product or consumer safety. And we should ensure that there is, at the end, an overall positive sustainability impact over the full life cycle. So a value chain perspective here is essential because it will be different depending on where our materials go in. The impacts will be different depending how that value chain looks like. So we see the sustainable product policy as an opportunity actually for us to bring forward even more solutions to the market. We welcome it and we welcome the ambitious aim to make the products placed on the EU more sustainable, reducing the environmental footprint over the complete life cycle, increasing their lifespan, reducing the waste, and to improve the use rates of recycled and circular materials. And I'm really looking forward to being part of this panel and exchange with the colleagues and hear also the questions from the audience.
Thanks, Lynette. That chemical recycling issue is a particularly interesting one because it's kind of evolving technology, and the potential of it is quite significant. I'm sure we'll touch on that later. Justin, let's turn to you. You guys are really looking at the nitty-gritty of legislation and standardization on these issues. How important will legislation and standardization be for meeting the circular economy goals?
Thank you, Dave. I'd just like to start just by introducing ECOS. So we are an environmental NGO. We're focused on standards and standardization and making sure that standards provide a good and effective support to EU legislation. So that's where we come from. We work very closely with SEN and SENELEC to deliver those standards and those technical requirements. I think from a legislation perspective, obviously I'm not going to repeat what Paola has said because I think she covered everything extremely well, but I think the primary focus of the legislator under the Circular Economy Action Plan or delivering a circular economy for Europe must be on removing unnecessary, inefficient, toxic, wasteful and polluting products from the EU market and complementing this with better consumer information. By better, I mean accurate, I mean reliable, I mean understandable. So I think that's a critical role that the legislator can play. The Commission outlined its plans for the Circular Economy Action Plan. I think they're comprehensive, and we're looking forward to seeing a strong ambition from an environmental perspective to ensure that they do deliver on the sustainability improvements that we so desperately need. I think in terms of looking at where we need to look along the value chain, we need to look across the whole value chain, as Covestro just said. So sourcing, design, production, use, reuse, and recycling. All of those elements need to be taken into account with regard to sustainability. And again, I'll say the same figure that Paola mentioned because I think it's an absolutely key figure. 80% environmental challenges are designed in at the design phase. So that is absolutely critical. And that's why I think eco-design as a tool, as a proven tool, as an extremely effective tool from an economic perspective, from a consumer perspective, and from an environmental perspective, is a very good tool that can be used not only for energy related products as it's currently used, but across other sectors. So I think it's very, very valuable that the Commission has proposed to expand the Eco-Design Directive, and obviously that has received strong support from stakeholders. The Council have some very interesting conclusions, some very detailed conclusions that they'll be adopting in December. And I think it's very interesting to see ECOS's work reflected in those conclusions. So I think sustainability is going to be absolutely key. And I think looking at the framework, it needs to cover all of the key polluting sectors, whether that's electronics, textiles, furniture, ICT, batteries, construction. We do need to make sure that all of the main sectors, all of the main impact sectors, automotive as well, are covered either by dedicated initiatives and legislation or by the framework itself.
Justin, you brought up a good point, which is, how do we really define this? I think that's what I want to first put out to the panel here. Of course, we can all agree that more sustainability in our products is a good thing. The question is, what is sustainability? How do you define a sustainable product? Let me, Paula, put this question to you, because you guys are really going to be in the driver's seat here in defining what this is. How do we define product sustainability, and what would be the risks of misdefining that term? Is there a risk of making the definition either too loose or maybe too specific?
Yes, you said it. This is really the tricky question and the starting point somehow. I think with the legislative proposal, we are going to come up with some definitions, some horizontal principles that, taken all together, will really allow to understand what we mean by a sustainable product. So we will give some tools in different instruments also to identify how to assess this sustainability. For example, using the product environmental in some cases when we have category rules for some specific products, will give already a very good indication of what we mean by a sustainable product. At the same time, we are the 9th of December today, and I think today we are going to adopt a proposal for the batteries, to have sustainable batteries. In fact, in this one, we are already using elements of the product environmental footprint precisely to indicate what we mean by a sustainable battery. So you will have to read between the lines and then looking at the tools that we put forward. At the same time, I'm thinking about, I think you mentioned it in the beginning, some voluntary tools like the EU Eco label indicates also elements of sustainability. In this case, it's actually excellence in sustainability. Yeah? So I think that you need to wait for these horizontal principles that will indicate. What is important to understand is that with the proposals, we are going, I think it was indicated by one of the participants or in this panel, that we need to work product by product, because depending on the product, sustainability, that is a general concept, may need to be implemented in different ways. We need to look sometimes at the design of the product, sometimes at the material use, how different materials combine, percentage of recycled content, for example, that may be valuable and a good indicator of sustainability for some products, and other elements in the case of other products. So it will be a combination of effects, I would say. And what we need also to keep in mind is that we also need to monitor the overall impact and see how all together with the different measures we are processing, we're going towards greater sustainability.
Thanks a lot. Let me go to Lynette. I mean, as a company, how important is it to you that we have a workable definition of what is a sustainable product?
Thanks, Dave. For us, it is very important, of course, because for us, this will also drive market uptake when we talk about sustainable solutions, circular solutions. So it becomes very important that we get the definition right in this regard, and that we go in the right direction. We talked about it in our initial statements. Sustainability is complex. We look at various different objectives between circularity, carbon neutrality, etc. And we talk about very different product groups and value chains in this regard, and the way we operate today. So when we talk about moving to a more sustainable and circular economy, we need to define our products accordingly to where we actually really can optimize them, and then shift accordingly towards that future. And I would like to pick up here actually what the Commission, what Paula just talked about in terms of sustainable products. For us, it's very important that sustainable products are defined from product to product, from value chain to value chain. For Covestro, we are working, as I mentioned, very much in terms of delivering materials that are based on recycled content or bio-based material, or even CO2 in this regard. And when we look at where, which value chains can we impact and what does that mean, we really need to understand then the holistic life cycle perspective in this regard. And we need tools such as LCAs in order to ensure at the end of the day that we are driving the product category, the product group, is coming from a raw materials perspective, the product group, as well as the value chain to increase sustainability and dealing with the complexity between circularity and carbon neutrality, for example. So really it's product group per product group, value chains, because it's very difficult to have one standard definition on sustainable products. It needs to be defined accordingly to what are the potential and opportunities in that particular value chain. So we will have to consider that in product design to start with. When I talk about sourcing, for example, we need to consider that in the use phase, what is the contribution also in terms of sustainability, and of course in the end of life, because we want to move towards increased circularity. So all of these aspects actually need to be tied together, product design, life cycle approach, and the value chain. Will it ultimately really deliver on it? So it sounds complex, but I believe that if we look at it really diligently from a product group and value chain perspective, we actually can get there.
As you say, that life cycle analysis is really going to be key. Justin, standardizing this definition is ECOS's bread and butter, right? So how do you think we can standardize this definition?
I think asking the question of defining sustainability, I think is absolutely the right question to ask. I wonder though whether it's the right question to answer. I think looking at the bigger picture, sustainability, it's about making sure that we are within the Earth's carrying capacity or within the Earth's planetary boundaries. At the more sort of technical level, it then comes down to definitions. And here we've been working on definitions with Sen and Senelec on durability, repairability, reusability, recyclability. So I think those are the key elements of how do you define sustainability. And I think the Commission picks up on a key element of the definition in its inception impact assessment. It's an ability to deliver the service they're designed for an energy and a resource efficient way. So I think that's the absolute key definition that we should be looking at, or not definition, but I think that's the direction we should be looking at, the ability to deliver the service they're designed for in an energy and resource efficient way. And I think it's very interesting because obviously sustainability is very, very important. You've seen Covestro there say that obviously they want to highlight that their products are sustainable. I think that's a very rational thing to do. And I think in order to do that, we do need criteria, because obviously we do see an enormous economic opportunity in the circular economies. There is a fascinating report by Material Economics that is looking at an economic benefit annually by the year 2030 of 535 billion. And that's just looking at mobility, the built environment, and food systems. So I think circular economy offers such a rich investment agenda that can support the recovery. It's not in contradiction to a recovery, but I think we need to make sure that claims that companies do make are supported by appropriate and high quality life cycle assessments. Life cycle assessments need to be, I'll use the word regulated. The Commission have their product environmental footprint, which I think is a very, very solid LCA approach. But we do need to make sure that LCA or claims that come out of LCAs are regulated. And here I think claims and labelling and the Commission's approach to claims and labellings, I think is going to be very, very vital.
Well, Regina, let me put to you, I mean, Paula, sorry, did you want to come in on that?
Yes, but I what Justin indicated, but I can do that afterwards.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to ask Regina, once we've defined these criteria, it's then going to be up to national governments to enforce. And this is always the push and pull here. We here in Brussels, can make the regulations, but it's up to the national capitals to enforce them, and that can be complicated. So how can these sustainability criteria be enforced at national level, and how much importance should be given to each of the criterion that's developed, Regina?
Well, I think there are several ways of enforcing. Of course, I completely agree on what was said so far. We have to really differentiate between product groups, and we have to really look precisely into what we can regulate. And what I also want to say, sometimes we should recall that we all have a little bit of common sense. Of course, there will be trade-offs between certain aspects of sustainability, but frankly speaking, if we reduce complexity a little bit, and if we also accept that innovation and research will go on, and that maybe an assessment on sustainability, which we are doing today, may be different in 10 years, then we also arrive at a little easiness to regulate. I mean, we are not static. Things will further develop. And so we have consumers labeling. We can work with the consumers. We can put standards, as we have said. We can work with green procurement. I think this is a perfect power. We have just come up with new regulation in Germany regarding green procurement for the public sector of the central government, and it's politically a very strong power, which of course also requires criteria. And if we then look into different product groups, as Paula already said, and try to figure out what are the key issues which we need to improve on, we will find modes of completely to clearly regulate what we want from these kind of products, right from the production, from the design, and down the value chain.
Thanks, Regina. Jessica, let me put to you, I mean, since you are representing the citizens of Europe, specifically citizens in Sweden, how much is is consumer buy-in on this important? How much do you think consumers are informed about a product's environmental footprint now, at the moment? And do you think they necessarily make the connection between sustainability and price? Do you think consumers would be happy to pay more for a product that is more sustainable and friendlier to the earth?
Thank you. I think information is one of the most difficult tasks that one can approach, and we can see this during this pandemic. I think that all citizens of Europe know how to handle the pandemic and what to do and what to don't do. But either so, we can see that the figures are not going down, and the disease is still spread, and the virus is all over Europe. So I think there's a difference in the information and knowing what to do and to actually do it. And if you ask people whether they would like to buy a more environmental friendly product or not, I think the answer is yes. But it's not always the case when you are standing in the shop and when you are doing your choice in reality. But of course, it is good to have an enlightened and well-informed public and consumers, because we know that if you have the right information, you can also make the right decisions. Either you choose to do so or not, but you have the information that's needed. But we can also see from the patterns and behaviors that it takes a while. It takes a quite long time to change your pattern and habits. And to take a Swedish example again, we have had for a long time, since I was a child, we have collected paper and recycling paper. And I think that that is something that we do naturally and don't think about. But otherwise, it takes time to change habits and patterns. But I think it's good, and it's in the interest of all to have much information in the market. And of course, this is for the industry to also inform and have the possibility to give to consumers to make a right and quite easy decision while standing there. And of course, on the other hand, there is also a demand from the consumers to have this aspect when you are doing your choice. And if there are as much information needed, I think that is good for consumers. And we know that it's not only people that will consume. We also have the public sector that buys a lot, and that you have to have maybe more of a life cycle analysis in order to make the right decisions and the long-term decisions to make it right from the start.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, as they say. We've got lots of great questions coming in from the audience. I'm going to go straight to those now because they are so good. Of course, first question here from Claudia Kustenzer. How do we ensure that the circular economy models are genuinely sustainable and not simply circular? Paula, let me put that question to you. Does circular always necessarily mean more sustainable?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. This allows me to say, really anticipate the comment that I wanted to make before coming in just after Justin. So the thing between your question and what he indicated. So when he said that, is this the right question to answer about the definition of sustainability? I wanted precisely to emphasize that one thing is to define, clearly important, and the other is how we implement. How do we make it work? And this is for me really the difference between sustainability and circularity, or the difference, or how you see the dynamic between the two. And now I'm going to answer precisely this question. For us, the principles of circularity are the tools to implement sustainability. So if you want, you need to see, is circularity always the best solutions to be sustainable? Well, let's just start by keeping in mind a sort of a hierarchy of circularity. And so whenever we are faced with having to manage a product that hopefully will have been designed accordingly to principle of sustainability, so reducing the resources needed, and thanks to an LCA assessment. So once we are dealing with this product, we need to manage it. Let's give priority, for example, to sharing or reusing it over any single use activity. Let's give priority then to maintaining and upgrading this product. So in order to prolong or to extend its life. Let's go towards, right, so after, as I was saying, a sort of a hierarchy, to repair it over deciding to discard it simply because it doesn't fulfill the purpose anymore, or it doesn't do it correctly. So the tendency that we have is to discard it, and then no, let's change a little bit the sequence of the actions that we do. Let's from the industrial perspective, look into remanufacturing the product and then using the different components. So dismantle it and using the different components in further products. So in this way, I think that circularity is key for sustainability, because it gives a way to implement it, to make it tangible. Yes, I think that's really the way that I think we should look into this, having this priority of actions in mind as consumers, and of course as producers as well. And this is something that we will try to enshrine also in the legislations, of course.
Well, we have a related question here from Anonymous. It's the most liked question in the queue. Is it more sustainable to repair an old washing machine, which consumes a lot of electricity, or to replace? So I think this is a very concrete example of how circular might not always be more sustainable. Justin, let me put that question to you. What would you say? What's best to do in that specific scenario?
I think what's best to do in that specific scenario is what one would do in the eco-design process, and that is to bring in a significantly broad study to do that assessment. Trade-offs, I think, are one of the key elements that we will be facing in the sustainability discussion. Lightweighting versus durability, lifetime extension versus new efficient products, which is the example you've just given. Improved durability versus repairability. I think these trade-offs need to be taken account in the LCAs, in the product environmental footprint approach. They're absolutely vital discussions. Stakeholders will have very different perspectives that will need to be inputted into that process. So I do think it's very important that the eco-design process that does address these trade-offs, does address these considerations at the product level, at the product group level, is absolutely vital. Just looking at the testing one, there was a very interesting test case relating to vacuum cleaners. When you're designing the test to compare efficiencies to, are you doing the test with how do you compare bagless versus bag vacuum cleaners that use bags? Do you test with a bag that's full, half full, or empty? How does a consumer usually use their vacuum cleaner? And that's an interesting one, because it recently ended up in the European Court of Justice. So I think these discussions will be key. The eco-design process does have a very nice formula for setting these out and taking these considerations, these trade-offs into account. And I think that will need to be taken forward in the Sustainable Products Initiative.
Yeah, I mean, these issues can be much more complex than they might seem at first. Regina, let me put the same question to you, because I imagine that for that particular instance with the washing machine, it would depend a lot on the country's power source, right? Like the power mix and the specific circumstances of that country. So from a national perspective, maybe specifically from a German perspective, what would be more sustainable in that scenario?
Well, I haven't seen this particular washing machine. So, but what I feel is that we all have to undergo a change of mindset. We all know that that we are consuming too much. So to start as a kind of a initial focal point on the question of durability and reuse is, I think, a right question. And of course, you will always come to break-even points where you say, it doesn't make sense, this old washing machine, it consumes so much of energy, so let's have a new one. Yes, then it is fine. And also, we should not make it too complicated. I think one of the problems we face in climate debate and in all environmental issues, that you can really confuse consumers to the maximum. Yeah. So if you come up with a couple of principles, and I think one good principle is let us not sort of buy products which are unnecessarily having a short lifespan. In some cases, it is necessary that or their lifespan cannot be very long. But in many cases, you can get along with with a washing machine quite for a long number of years, and there's no need to change your washing machine every second year. I'm convinced on this. And then, as we just heard, I think there has to be a kind of a convention maybe also to tell consumers in general, please keep your product at least for so and so long, and we have to make really sure that we are not confusing them too much with too many ifs and buts. So maybe I leave it at this point.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, that oftentimes consumers don't know what type of products should have a short life and what should have a long life, and when should you replace a washing machine. I don't really know, actually, I have to confess. Let's take a next question. This question is for Lynette. It's from Leon from Sustainable Public Affairs. He asks, what does future-proof chemical recycling look like to a sustainable frontrunner like Covestro? So again, coming back to this chemical recycling, it's a popular topic right now, also controversial because there's questions asked about the safety of some of the chemicals being used. How do you envision a future-proof chemical recycling, Lynette?
Yeah. Thank you very much, Dave, for the question, and to the participant here, the Sustainable Public Affairs consultant, I suppose. And chemical recycling for us is a very important topic, because we see that actually as an opportunity to deal with the plastic waste that we're not able to deal with today through mechanical recycling. We talk about a hierarchy about how to actually deliver on sustainability topics. And if we compare between what do we do with the plastic waste that we're not able to actually recycle by today's means, from a Covestro perspective, we do believe that chemical recycling offers this opportunity to bring back materials to their second life. What is important here is, of course, to ensure that we are taking care of the particular substances. I mean, it offers an opportunity actually to deal with legacy chemicals in certain cases, in some materials, that we actually can ensure that we deal, bringing them back to the molecules, bringing back new materials into the actual economy again. We are actually able to increase then recycling rates. So it is important to ensure also how we deal with the substances, and that's something that the chemical industry is used to. Another aspect when it comes to chemical recycling that we hear very much is also about energy efficiency. And here, of course, we come back to the topic about LCAs and life cycle approaches. It is important also here to ensure, when we talk about future proofing, that chemical recycling, we overall see positive benefits across the life cycle for this. We have to also, I want to take up the point about that we are not static in this regard. I mean, what we see today in terms of technology offering, we need to imagine a world in a couple of years' time where we actually bring new technologies to the market. We also need to understand the energy mixes are changing also in this respect, so on. So I think the overall holistic perspectives need to be considered in this regard. And from a Covestro perspective, when we're looking into developing our chemical recycling processes, we are definitely looking into also having the LCAs accompanying them to ensure that we actually ultimately are delivering into a more sustainable and circular future. Yeah.
We have a next question here from Tudi Bernier. Hello, Tudi. Can the Commission clarify, question for Paula, how can the Commission clarify whether packaging will be part of the sustainable products policy, and if packaging is included in the SPP, how will it be articulated with the current review of packaging waste rules? Paula?
Yes, we are foreseeing the legislation foresees a review of the packaging and packaging waste directive for 2021. It will also be addressed in review. Again, keep in mind what I said at the very beginning. You need to see this sustainable product policy framework as a puzzle where different initiatives comes in and bring different elements. The complexity to to allow for the impact assessments that are needed to be published, to be translated then into the instrument, and then that everything makes sense in a time perspective. So yes, packaging will be addressed, but again with the time foreseen by the legislations, and then we will go through all the better regulation systems. So with the consultations that are needed, and as I said, impact assessment that are foreseen for that.
Jessica, you on the ENVI committee will be inheriting any proposal from the Commission. So do you want to see packaging included, and how should it be included?
Oh, that's a good question. I think that we have to, like has been already said, look into the different sectors and what would be the best way of including different materials and different sectors into the legislation. And I think that what we have seen from the scope so far, it's not impossible to include, but I think overall what had been said before, that it's in the existing legislation, and I think it's an important sector, of course, and we know that there has been innovations in this sector with packaging and so on, and I think the development is looking into other materials as well. So I think we could look into it depending on what the Commission will propose.
Regina, let me put. Yep, Paula.
If I may add a few elements. So in this revision, the impact assessment that is ongoing is actually looking, for example, just to give a little bit more detail, is looking into, of course, the options to make all packaging reusable or recyclable by 2030. This was one of the oaths, if I can say so, of the we need to look in restricting the use of certain materials, but depending on the applications and then the labeling that goes with it, we are looking into reducing over packaging and overall the packaging waste generation. So we will look into also some of the targets. We will have some hopefully some elements that will make a recycled content mandatory, and again also some of the targets for this, and using always in the mandatory the green area for packaging. So these are some of the areas where we are actually looking in order to reinforce some of the essential requirements for packaging. I just wanted to indicate to the public that there is an online public consultation that has started on 30th of September, and it will last until the 6th of January. So it's in the Commission portal. So we are really welcoming contributions to this. And again, one, we will the proposal for the revision.
Thanks. Thanks for those specifics. That's actually very helpful for an article I'm working on. So thanks a lot for that. Regina, we have a question here, which I think you could take. It's from Clemens Rosenmeyer. Should the right to repair be generally extended, already foreseen for certain electrical appliances as of 2021? Would you like to see this right to repair, that is, a consumer always has the right to have their product repaired by the manufacturer? Should that be extended to more products?
Yes, absolutely. I think there are a lot of products where we can boost sustainability by just making them repairable. And I'm convinced we need to start with a sensible selection of products. One cannot do everything at the same time. I'm sure it has to be sensible. Also, consumers have to understand the benefit of that. But I mean, there are so many products where I'm convinced that you can improve on their repairability, and this would be a good step towards sustainability from 2 points of view. First of all, it would improve the life cycle analysis, I'm sure, and secondly, it will also change or positively influence the mindset of the people, because we have been used to throwing away too easily. So if you travel worldwide, if you go to other countries, even in Europe, you find many situations where certain things are not thrown away that easily. And this is, I think, a good way. And we need to some extent, get back to that. I mean, not to I don't want to be non-innovative or so, but still, I think we can sometimes reduce our own ecological footprint by not consuming excessively. Thank
Paula,
you.
did you want to clarify what right to repair is?
Yes, thank you very much. It's really, I think it's very, very important because we have heard a lot about the right to repair, but I think it is difficult to grasp exactly what it means and how we're going to ensure that consumers have a right to repair. So if you use a matrix of three perspectives, the one of the products, the one of the producers, and the one of the consumers, you can actually have this broader idea of what it is, what makes a right to repair. So the Commission is going to work on these three angles. From the products perspective, we will introduce, just like we did under the previous action plan, with the Eco-Design Directive, extended to non-energy related some essential requirements, precisely of durability, repairability specifically, and availability of spare parts. So this is from the products angle. From the producers, we are going to introduce extended producer responsibility schemes. So this is the angle, the way to work to ensure that there is a right to repair for the consumers ultimately, but working from the producer's responsibility. And then from the consumer angle, then it will be precisely the initiatives on empowering consumers that will set some horizontal right to repair, a tangible, a concrete material rights. So if whenever we discuss or stakeholders are faced with the concept of right to repair and needs to understand how it will become concrete, keep always in mind these three perspectives.
Great. So we have two more related questions, which are also to Paula. I think you've covered them a bit just there in your answer, but I'll put these two up. Adriana Jalba asks, how will the key features of a product, functionality, safety, quality, and cost be taken into account? And a related question from Nicholas Hodach from UNESTA. Lots of plastic packaging is already covered by PPWD and SUP. Will it also be covered by SPPI? That's a lot of acronyms. I don't know what they mean, but hopefully you do, Paula. What would be your answer to those two questions?
Okay, let's go one by one. It is true, it's a lot of acronyms. It is true that I think I know them, but let's open it up for the audience. So the first one is how we're going to take into consideration some of these features. Well, again, the Sustainable Product Initiative, so one of the proposals, the one that is expected towards the end of the year and that it expands the scope of the Eco-Design Directive, will introduce some essential requirements, some minimum requirements for these for products. So product specifics. It will very likely work like the directive. So we have a work plan that identifies which products. So depending on the product and the timing, we will introduce some of these features. And the second question is in so the packaging and packaging waste. The sustainable product, the single-use plastics. So these were the acronyms I think I got. So, but then I'm lost with the question. So how these three? Can you just highlight the question?
Yes, I think I can pull it up again. How do I do that? I've never done this before. Pulling up a question again. Let's try it. Yeah. Can you see it? PPWD, SUP, will it be covered by those two, and will it be covered by SPPI?
Yes, so precise. So I think that the question means simply, how will these, the reviews of existing directors and how the new legislations will interact together? Well, I think I have, at least I've tried to reply to this in my initial comments, saying that you really see the different elements. So you need to see it through the year. I'm sure that at the end of the year, so when Q4 2021, when we will come with the Sustainable Product Initiative, this SPPI that is mentioned, a lot of the gray area of how the different initiatives get together will be very clear. Again, essential requirements on one side, and then thematic legislations on the other. Again, I hope it's clarifies. If not, yes, by the way, I'm welcome the audience to join and to reach to me bilaterally. I can continue that conversation bilaterally.
Definitely. And actually, we've had so many questions for this panel, but we do have to wrap it up now. But I think that the appetite here from the audience shows that we should definitely do another event on this topic, because lots of engagement here. I want to close out with some concluding remarks from each of you, just some quick takeaways. Let's start with Regina. What are your main takeaways from today's discussion?
I'm very happy that the idea of resource efficiency, sustainability is really taking shape in Europe, and we are very happy to contribute to that. And if we are all take it seriously, I'm sure we will reach somewhere.
Jessica, how about you? What are your concluding thoughts?
Thank you, and thank you for having me. I would say that it's everyone wants to have definitions, but we also want to have the right definitions. And we know from other areas that when we do definitions, we will also have a definition that won't fit all. So I think that is crucial to keep in mind, that one size doesn't fit all. And I think there has been different sectors and different materials, and it is important to take in consideration that there will be applied in different ways, and therefore I think it's important to really have a good discussion on what the goals and definitions will be in the future, because otherwise it may not serve the purposes that we really want to do from the political side. And I think also there's a personal responsibility in this, and I think that is crucial too. And like you asked me whether the consumers are well informed or not, I think that is also something that you can't from political side legislate, but I think that is crucial for how successful and how we will succeed in the future. But of course, I think it's good discussion, and I think that the Commission also has clarified a lot of question marks. So thank you, and thank you for this discussion.
Yes, Paula, thanks for all the clarification. Maybe Paula, what's your key takeaway from today?
Thank you. Yes, in fact, if I may, I have a wish list. Considering the time of the year, it's like a Santa Claus kind of little letter. Would be that we really focus, when we talk about sustainable products, on empowering consumers. We are consumers, so allow the audience to do two favors. Do a favor to yourself this year and buy an EU eco-label product, and do a second favor to someone else and give a present, an EU eco-label product. Just so then to raise the awareness and to show that there are products that are already on the market that are sustainable. So then, again, trying to bring a little bit of the Christmas spirits in this different Christmas. Let's make it a really different start of the different consumption patterns.
Could do a little splurging for Christmas and buy some appliances with all the money we've saved at our not using our travel budget that we normally would. Lynette, let's go next to you. What are your concluding thoughts?
Yeah. My main takeaway from the discussion is that sustainable products should become the norm. We hear that from the different panel colleagues that I have here. That's the conviction of Covestra as well. So we are aiming for a more sustainable and circular future. And with sustainable and circular, we talk about carbon neutrality and other environmental aspects as well. So in this drive towards that, I think what was also very clear is that we need to look at the product groups. We need to understand the value chains perspective. It is important to take a holistic picture in this regard. And understand the ecosystem when we talk about incorporating more recycled content, for example, and that we consider the product design, the use phase, end of life, and can we bring it back? And all of this should deliver into carbon neutrality mainly and foremost. Circularity is a way to get there, and we should become more circular. Our vision is to become fully circular, and we see that as a pathway towards becoming carbon neutral, actually, in Covestro.
Thanks. And finally, Justin, what are your key takeaways from today?
Thank you. I think a key takeaway for me, I think, is perhaps a question from, I think it's from Claudia, right at the beginning, on circularity, and is that the sole route to delivering sustainability? The most sustainable product is likely the one that is neither produced nor used. In the same way that the cleanest kilowatt hour is the one that is not consumed and not produced. So I think that's a vital element. I think we need to look at the life cycle of products. We need to look across the value chain: sourcing, design, production, use, reuse, and recycling. And I think stay away from a focus on a particular part of that, whether that's what was interestingly termed future-proof chemical recycling. I think the Environment Commissioner was quite clear yesterday on the hierarchy and where it fits in the hierarchy. Let's not focus and let's not have the sustainability debate, the circular economy debate, hit by any weapons of mass distraction.
Good point. Yes, I mean, as we mentioned before, there are big concerns about chemical recycling, so we will see what happens with that and with all of these issues. I want to thank the panelists for some great contributions today, and also the audience for some great questions. I'm sorry we couldn't get to all of them, but I am looking forward to another event on this topic, because I can see that all of you out there are very, very interested in this. After all, this is something that impacts all of our lives. These are the products that we buy, that we use every day, and that we, I think for the most part, want to see being as nice as possible to the planet we inhabit. So thanks everybody for following on today. I wish you a great rest of the day, and we'll see you next time for the next Your Active Debate.